ready? Legislative Week in Review. Here we come.
All right.
All right. So for the Legislative Week in Review, I really only had two things that I wanted to talk about this time. So the first thing, which you alluded to earlier, Steve, was the HR 7120, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2020. It just passed in the House on June 25th. It was predominantly Democrat heavy. As you can see, it had 230 Democratic co-sponsors. And the bill passed at 236 to 181. So obviously it was a heavily partisan bill, which doesn't bode well for its passage in the Senate, right? So just like a quick synopsis of it. So this bill addresses a wide range of policies and issues regarding policing practices and law enforcement accountability. It includes measures to increase accountability for law enforcement misconduct, to enhance transparency, which that word, transparency, and data collection, and to eliminate discriminatory policing practices. So among other things, it does the following. So it lowers the criminal intent standard from willful to knowing or reckless. To convict a law enforcement officer for misconduct in a federal prosecution limits qualified immunity, which is a good one, right, as a defense to liability in a private civil action against a law enforcement officer or state correctional officer, and authorizes the Department of Justice to issue subpoenas in investigations of police departments for a pattern or practice of discrimination. The bill also creates a national registry, the National Police Misconduct Registry, to compile data on complaints and records of police misconduct. It establishes a framework to prohibit racial profiling at the federal, state, and local levels. The bill establishes new requirements for law enforcement officers and agencies, including to report data on use of force incidents, to obtain training on implicit bias and racial profiling, and to wear body cameras. So like you were saying, Steve, it goes, but it doesn't go far enough, right? The fact that I think the National Registry is something that's really important that's added to there, because I think there was one case where, obviously this is more prevalent than just one case, but there was one case that was reported of a police officer who he had a slew of violent interactions or reprimands on his record, but and he ended up being fired, and then he just ended up going like a few towns over and getting a job, and then he ended up killing someone. So that is obviously a big deal. I really would have liked to have seen something similar to what we're going to see in Boston, hopefully, with the whole diverting the calls. I think that should have been something that was included in here. But again, we have to start somewhere, right? The limiting the qualified immunity, that's something good. And also the fact that it changes the intent standard from willful to knowing or reckless. I think that also, especially, with this whole debate of, first degree, second degree, or third degree, and how it's really hard to prove a first degree murder, but, or at least to get those charges to stick, right? It's really hard for something like that, but if you change this intent, I think that can add a little bit of
yeah, you really want to be something like a person leaning on a person's windpipe for 8 minutes. It's reasonable to expect that a reasonable man would know, or person would know, that that's going to cause injury or death.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even the fact that, like, what a lot of people don't talk about is that when in a lot of these videos that we've seen where these men are, they're running away, a good majority of the time they're running away. So how is that putting your life, if you're a police officer, how is that putting your life in danger? If the person is running away from you, how
Right.
is that an
But
imminent
but
threat to your
I
life?
I've had this discussion. I have to play devil's advocate here, though.
Okay.
The cop is also responsible for the little black child around the corner, right? If you allow someone to get away and he actually has a weapon or is dangerous, that I don't know how to deal with that, as far as what the law should be. It seems to me that if that a dangerous person is almost a weapon, you let that person get away and he harms somebody else, the cop's kind of legally responsible, isn't he?
But the thing is that so what are you considering like a threat, right? But you're assuming that all of these people are all like violent criminals when a
No, no,
lot
I'm saying
of
no, no.
times,
I'm saying every case is different. I'm saying if
right, right. But that's
somebody,
but in a good
yeah,
majority of these cases, at least that we've seen the video of it. Obviously we can't speak for things that we haven't
Right.
seen.
yeah, specific
In
cases,
these
yes,
videos, we're seeing how these people are running away. They're not,
right,
and it's just because they don't want to be, like what happened with Rayshard Brooks, right? The fact that, I mean, I do understand that he ended up taking the taser away from the police officers or whatever,
right.
but he was running away and he hadn't committed a violent crime. So
Yeah.
how is it that you can't use that justification in that
No,
sense?
I think in his case, you would not have the. I mean, whether or not he was drunk, and a taser is a weapon that is dangerous to some people if they're young or feeble or whatever, have a heart condition, but it's not, the chances of something having happened from that are seems extremely low. I don't think there was any reason to think he had any intent to do anybody any harm. That he
Right.
was
I
right.
actually saw the video
Right.
of the whole altercation. Like it was like over an hour they were with him,
Yeah.
and 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 you could tell the conversation was like super pleasant. The way that it went about, it didn't have to end up with maximum justice being applied to him, where now he had to die. They could have very well just treated it as, all right, let's get him a ride home. We're going to give him a ticket, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like something else. But
Right.
instead, this man ended up losing his life on his daughter's birthday, no less.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
What does this have to do with the bill, though, per se?
Oh, I was just, well, it's the whole, like I said, the whole willful to knowing or reckless. That is reckless behavior, on, or the police officer has to know that if they're shooting someone who is running away from them and they shoot them 3 times or however many times that they have to know that their intent is that they're going to harm this person. They're going to kill them.
Right. But I mean,
It
it
can't
doesn't
be like,
remove.
well, my bad.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
doesn't remove the whole problem of, warrior mentality versus community policing. And I think this
Yeah.
bill is fine as far as it goes. But for instance, body cameras, they're very limited. I mean, you should require dashboard cameras as well, at the very least. And also, you should have some kind of community involvement in running these police departments. They should be. You shouldn't have it run by these rogue union chiefs or whatever. I mean, there has to be community input into the police departments.
What do you mean specifically, the entire running of the police department or the disciplinary
I'm talking about
procedures?
running the
Okay.
police department. Just like in
Yeah.
Germany, in the corporations, you have worker representation on the boards. You have to have community representation in police departments because they are the connection, the conduit between the state and the community. I mean, they are like between the law and everyday people. So you need to have that input, and that might help
Yeah.
create more trust and help prevent these kinds of attitudes, which seem to me are endemic in some of these police departments. Not all, but some of them. You just don't see it as much in a lot of other countries. You see it here for whatever reasons, historic or otherwise. But I think, and then militarization, all that type of thing. But I think it's not like, is militarization, for instance, is that addressed in this bill? I don't think so. I think we need more comprehensive. And again, it's a case. This bill is a case of the powers that be giving a few crumbs,
Right.
and that's it. It's good, but it's like okay, so you're giving us like 3% instead of 80%, right?
Right.
Like it's going to be like, it's really going to, not really going to change things. And what Minneapolis is doing, whether you agree with it or not, that's radical. I mean, they're dissolving the police department and building it from the ground up. And it may or may not succeed. I don't know. But I think we need a much more comprehensive approach to police reform, and this bill isn't it.
I agree.
Yeah, civilian boards make a lot of sense. I mean, whether or not it's just for disciplinary, at the minimal for disciplinary issues, but definitely I agree with you that the atmosphere might be completely different if there are civilians, that are part of the policeman's everyday life as part of the structure of the police force. You might not have such a militaristic attitude develop.
It's just that, like, right now, everything is insular. It's controlled by the police department. So if there's an investigation, there's an internal investigation, right? So, I mean, it's just, let's just make it a little bit more, have some more community input. It doesn't mean that the citizens have to dominate the board or run the board. It just means they have to have representation on the board so their voice is heard. And I think you need more than just, in these specific cases of abuse or misconduct. I think you need to have representation in general. I mean, that seems to me like, how could that hurt? Unless, I mean, from the militarized police point of view, maybe it would hurt them because you have people who are going to object to that. But I don't really see an objection.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, like I said, I agree with you that it doesn't go anywhere near far enough, but I guess we gotta celebrate whatever sort of crumbs.
Yeah. Hey, incrementalism, yay!
Yeah.
Yeah.